and I was in Seattle, so Microsoft was found in Seattle, and also Amazon was found in Seattle. I spent a lot of my time trying to differentiate Capricorn, so it has a unique edge. The geekiness was the main character that got me into this whole industry. Well, I can take a very basic entrepreneur and if you say, architecture is not that important for you to have technology, that's definitely a no-no. But coding is like this very universal mantra that if you learn now, it applies to the whole world. You know who wrote WhatsApp, the entrepreneur, and where he lived? He's from Ukraine.
The biggest e-commerce platforms have been started in a small way. For an example, Jeff Bezos decided to start Amazon at a garage, and the same story goes to Jack Ma, who started off Alibaba. Today, we have with us a very successful Sri Lankan IT entrepreneur who decided to start his e-commerce platform in a small way but turned it into one of the biggest platforms in Sri Lanka. You know who I'm talking about. This is the founder of Caprica.com. Let's go find out what he has to say.
Today, we're here with someone who decided to put his IT knowledge into practical use at a very young age. He studied in the US, got a great opportunity to work at a prestigious company such as Microsoft, and yet he decided to start his own e-commerce business platform in 2003 when e-commerce platforms were alien to Sri Lanka and all around the globe. So we have Mr. Dilip Hera, a serial entrepreneur, am I right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
You're the founder and chairman of the Sri Lankan e-commerce platform Caprica.com. You're the founder of Java Lounge and co-founder of Grasshoppers Private Limited.
Right.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
All right. My first question. Today, e-commerce is very well known in 2023. It's regularly used by a lot of consumers within Sri Lanka and abroad. But back in 2003, when you decided to start Caprica, it was not well known, yet you decided to quit your job and start an entrepreneurship in e-commerce. Why did you take that leap? Why did you take that risk? And did you envision back in the day that e-commerce would be such a big deal in 2023?
Yeah, so I did, and it was a revolution, right? So if you look at the industrial revolution, farming revolution, if you go back the history path of a human evolution, there's that a revolution sometimes starts. So the internet revolution was just started, and then as a result, e-commerce is an industry altogether, like automobile industry or farming industry. It's an industry altogether. That industry started. So for me, it was a no-brainer because, I was lucky to be there. So I could, in the US, I could see it all over the walls. And I was in Seattle, so Microsoft was found in Seattle, and also Amazon was found in Seattle. So, and in California, eBay too. It's a Silicon Valley, right? So it was a no-brainer. But I knew my home country was not ready for it. But I knew this industry revolution has started, and it is here to stay. Just like how we feel about AI today. It's like you feel like it's a revolution. We know it's not going anywhere. Now we are all figuring out what to do, how can I use it, right? Yes. I did the same thing back then. Oh, e-commerce, wow, what can I do? And that's what I did.
Nice. Since you mentioned about your years in US, tell us a bit about your childhood, your journey. How did you start?
A bit about it. Let me see. I think the important part about my childhood is, you can characterize a kid, right? You can characterize a very naughty kid, or very funny kid, like a bookworm kid, all that. So I would say I was a very geeky kid, and very geeky. Even now, yeah, super geeky. Like I would go after Rubik's cubes, or I would go after there are these science experiment books which are
Kind of like Sheldon.
yeah.
Big Bang
So,
Theory.
yeah,
Exactly.
anything. I mean, even today, I mean, if you look at my mug, this is all physics theories on it. Like so, it's the geekiness was the main character that got me into this whole industry. So I was a coder, and I'm still coding, and that was like, even if you catch me at 11 o'clock in the night, even today with all these things going, what you will see on my screen will be a coding interface. Like I will have Eclipse or a similar thing that I'm working on. So that's the kind. Your question was what kind of a kid I was, and my childhood was a very geeky journey. So it grew into this level through that.
E-commerce is quite well known today. Everybody knows it, everybody uses it. There are so many competitive platforms as well. What makes Kapruka stand out?
Actually, that's the fun part of building Kapruka. If it is going to be a standard e-commerce that that you can find in any country, tens in dozens, it doesn't excite me. I spend a lot of my time trying to differentiate Kapruka, so it has a unique edge. One is we are very service oriented. Normally in the world, e-commerce is price oriented. That means people go for a deal. You may, like if you see a 20% off online sale, you will order it because of the price. You are not going to order because of the service yet, right? So Kapruka, we are differentiating it. If you order a product, you are never going to get that call and say, look, I don't have it. Do you want a different color? You are going to get that product. So it's the service orientation is one. Second is that we cater not only to the regular crowd in Sri Lanka, we also cater a lot to the expatriates who are, there's 2.2 million Sri Lankans who live outside Sri Lanka. It's actually more than the people who are in Colombo, if you take it. For those customers, we give very unique set of services to connect back to Sri Lanka. And as a third differentiator, I said two differentiators now, okay? One is that we are not price oriented, we are service oriented. Second, we have a diaspora customer base as well as locals. And the third is we sell Sri Lankan brands in global platforms. So you take Samahan, if you take Dilma, if you take Kakpati, all these top Sri Lankan brands that has a global demand. Usually they had to go through, let's say if you take a hit product like Samahan, if they want to sell Samahan in a supermarket in another country, you go to a distributor, tell the distributor to list it in the supermarket. But what if they want to list it on Amazon? What if they want to list it on Walmart? Then the traditional distributors can't do that because their expertise is in brick and mortar supermarkets. So Kapruka is an e-distributor for them. So Sri Lankan brands call us and we give them the service of, okay, we'll be your e-distributor, we'll handle your stock, we'll handle the returns, we'll take the photography, we'll handle the traffic too, because we know e-commerce, right? So those are the big three differentiators right now. I mean, I can go on, we have Grasshoppers for delivery, we are starting something called Partner Central that is going to, and we are going to get into cargo business, all that aside. But if you just focus on e-commerce, these are the three.
So you're not just a regular businessman, you call yourself a serial entrepreneur. Not a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
But you're also an IT specialist, you're a coder, you're a robotics expert, web technology specialist, so many things, but specifically you're a coder.
Yeah.
So you have had knowledge about different aspects of IT. So how did it affect your thinking pattern as a businessman, as an entrepreneur?
It's a good question. So I'll start from childhood. It has changed the pattern of my thinking. I think, let's say an example of a kid who is good at playing piano. From childhood, if he's playing piano and likes music, and even if he becomes an engineer one day as a profession, some of those traits, that creativity, thinking, and all that starts to apply to you, because I think most of your fundamental brain wiring happens in the first 20 years of your life. Okay, so it's super important that you are in that niche. So it is. So I remember being addicted to Rubik's Cube, being addicted to playing chess, being addicted to physics, quantum physics, all that from a very early childhood. That had shaped me into my today's thinking. So if you ask me a normal question from me, and if you ask a question from another colleague of mine who went to school with me, our thinking patterns can be very different, not because of our experience, the type of job we do. It probably because how the initial wiring happened when I was like, 3 feet tall. Yeah, so even today my business thinking is very similar to that 3 feet tall guy. It's most the challenges we have on a day-to-day basis. I look at it as an engineer. I look at it as a software engineer, and it could be a business challenge. It could be a very numbers-oriented thing which has nothing to do with technology, but my looking at it is again from an engineering perspective. So it actually becomes very a lot of my teammates, I see them coming to me to get a complete different perspective. So they would have been having the same drawing and talking about this a problem for hours in a conference room, but I would come and give them a complete, could be a complete dumb answer, but my perspective is very different. So I think it comes to that coding, thinking, brain wiring that happened to the 3 feet guy that gave me the new perspectives.
All right, so in current conditions and technological advancements that we're surrounded with, for business owners and entrepreneurs, how necessary is it to know or have a knowledge about IT and coding and running businesses and entrepreneurships?
No, I think pretty much even if you are starting a grocery shop these days, there is tech involved. You are going to need a WhatsApp account to simple POS systems and all that if you want to stand your grocery shop above. So I don't even need to go to a software company level of and give you an example. I can take a very basic entrepreneur and if you say architecture is not that important for you to have technology, that's definitely a no. Okay, so it's an absolute must. Even if you are the tiniest, very early stage startup guy, or you already are somewhere. And this is something I see all the time from like very senior leaders. If I ask them, do you know ABC, like this basic stuff, they lack that. Like, no, AI is something new, like that you can let it go. But if you ask some very simple stuff, there is like they will lack that. And it'll become a huge weakness as they age in the boardroom. Okay, and then you are not understanding what's going on, and you are giving wrong perspectives, and you might drag down something that you have built. I think it's important at that point either you need to learn or you need to step back.
All right. There are about 500 plus employees working in all your companies. So within Sri Lanka's current job markets, is there a big demand for IT and professionally qualified IT specialists in Sri Lanka? What is the demand like?
Demand has always been high, but you should not look at the local demand when you are an IT professional. The whole world is open to you. Okay, and if you become if you select medicine or science instead of software engineering, see the options you're going to have. Can you be a doctor in any country you want? Can you just, you have a degree here, do you know how difficult it is to migrate and give you a service, not to migrate even from here to give you a services? It's very difficult. But coding is like this very universal mantra that if you learn now, it applies to the whole world. And it's not about, getting out of Sri Lanka. You can be here and provide you a service all over the world, right? So it's an amazing industry to be in.
Since you mentioned that, there comes my next question. Right now in Sri Lanka, we are facing an economic crisis. It's so very important to bring foreign currency into Sri Lanka. And like you correctly said, IT industry can do so much. It has been doing a lot, and if you compare Sri Lanka's economy with other countries like India and all over the South Asian region, they bring billions in through IT industry. Do we have the potential to get that far? What can we do to get to that point?
I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to that point. I'll give you an example. WhatsApp. Okay, so WhatsApp was sold for 7 or 8 billion, I may be wrong, but around that number, to Facebook. Do you know who wrote WhatsApp, the entrepreneur, and where he lived? He's from Ukraine. Okay. There's a famous picture of him agreeing the signing paper, accepting the offer from Facebook to sell it for that 8 billion on his door, because he was that, okay, I'm done. Right? So he built it with a team of 5-6 people in Ukraine. Ukraine is still a bigger country than Sri Lanka, but the size doesn't matter when your company is 10 employees, right? He built it there and he sold it for that kind of money. But what if he had a software company that just gave IT services for 10 people without building a product? He's just giving 10 people IT. So you think he's ever going to get 8 billion into Ukraine? Never. Because he built a product which is globally usable, right? Which none of us can today live without. It has beaten email to everything. So if another Sri Lankan, one of a simple set of kids build few tools like that, that's enough. That's what's going to bring you money when you create a product. Right now we are like not in a bad way, but we are more like IT laborers, right? We are getting instructions, we are building, we are giving it and just getting a few dollars per hour. But if we get together and create a global product, I give you the example, you don't need to be in Silicon Valley to build global products, then that will bring you that kind of money.
I have a very interesting question. What do you think about the AI era? Because I'm confused about it. A lot of people are confused about it. What do you have to say about it?
I may be confused about it too, but I think most importantly, it's very important to immediately grab it right now. I can't even give a good enough example because nothing in the past has grown this fast. Maybe just like how I grabbed onto e-commerce very early on, but that you can't even compare because this is growing like crazy. I'll tell you the important piece for general public is for them to learn how to use it for your day-to-day work now itself. Okay. Now itself. That means if you are a content writer, don't get arrogant about ChatGPT can write much better, I don't need it, I'm going to do it myself. You are just going down a hole. You need to, if you are spending 2 hours writing an article, now do it in 5 minutes, but use the tool. If you are a graphic artist and you think your creativity is better, I don't think this AI thing can ever do better than my arts, you are wrong. You better learn how to use it and do 10 artworks per day instead of 1 in a week, right? So it's about this real awesome tool that is now on top of your table, but you need to know how to use it for your job. I think from a security guard to a bus driver to a software engineer to a doctor to you name it, they will find some use in it. But because this is such a open tool that you have, so just be very curious and at least understand the fundamentals and start using it in your day-to-day life.
All right, here's my final question.
Okay.
So, DP Coding School has been teaching and offering these courses, IT courses and coding courses for free for around 100,000 students, especially for those who live in rural areas. As a successful IT professional and IT entrepreneur, what is the best advice you could give to the students who are willing to learn coding, who are learning coding right now with DP Coding School? What do you have to say to them? What is the best way you can advise them?
No, first of all, I'm so proud of what they have done so far. If you say there is 100,000 students already, especially all over Sri Lanka, not in Colombo, the major cities, all over Sri Lanka, that if you have a platform that is teaching 100,000 students as we speak, do this interview, that is already phenomenal. And I think the results of such initiative will only come in multiple years. You may not see it immediately, but if you look at maybe 2028, build a time machine, go and see it, you might see without maybe this kind of a project, what a difference it would have made to Sri Lanka for not having an IT workforce. When I remember, when we were small and it was very difficult to find knowledge, and especially when it comes to coding, there was no YouTube. We had to go through books and all that, and it was always in bigger cities. It was clustered, right? But with this kind of a platform, it has, it's so accessible. I think the biggest thing here is that you guys have built the access the reach, not more than the reach actually, the reach is there, the access to IT information. You have brought it in a very simplified, accessible form. So good luck, and I'm so happy to hear these numbers on this.
All right. IT industry always has and will always provide many opportunities for the betterment of individuals and the country itself. That's why DP Education is doing such a tremendous job in providing IT knowledge and basics of coding to many youngsters. We hope that you got inspired after watching all the success stories of the entrepreneurs that we brought forward to you. We hope you got inspired. We hope you got motivated. Thank you so much for watching.